everybody.
Welcome to Home on the RNG. My name is Russ.
I'm Jeff. And that's Chris over there.
Oh, hello.
Chris is also in the room.
Today is one of our wrap-up video.
A wrap-up video? Are we doing a rap video?
Oh,
Are we going to
boy.
make a rap video? A Home on the RNG rap video?
Homies on the RNG.
Yes!
Today is our wrap-up episode talking about the last 9 games that we've reviewed. In case you're curious, the games we're discussing today are Trails in the Sky 2, Persona 1, Secret of Mana, Thousand Arms, Romancing Saga 1, Dragon Quest 4, Seventh Saga, Sword of Hope 1, and Chrono Cross. As always, I've got the nice list of tropes that we'll go through, and then we're going to talk about some of the good and some of the bad that we've encountered along the way.
Yay.
We will start with the trope that we always start with. Priests save your souls and your game. Mm-hmm. And there's only one game that does this. This has become so much less prevalent since we started.
Yes, because we've gotten through a lot of NES games at this point. And Super NES.
So Dragon Quest 4 is the only
prevalent.
game where priests are the ones that save your game. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pass this sheet of paper around.
Which is funny because some of them contain priests that have nothing to do with saving your game
Or your soul.
or your soul. Well, we don't know about that.
They didn't save mine.
Oh, well, the Seventh Saga, if you die, then you have to go to the priest. And he's like, I can recall the spirit or whatever. And you're like, okay.
Yeah. Must be nice to have that kind of power.
But it's the inn where you save your game
Mm-hmm.
through the magic of sleep.
Our second trope is opportunity to join the dark side. This only happened technically once in the games that we played in Seventh Saga.
And it's a tactical decision to do it. It's at the end of a long dungeon, and you're sneaking into a castle. And the enemy who has taken over the castle gives you the option to join him. If you say yes, you can walk out the castle, out the front door, save your game, rest at the inn, go back into the castle and kick his ass.
Mm-hmm.
Or just live out the rest of your days with half the game finished.
Right. There are honorable mentions in Trails in the Sky 2, which I'm going to bring up later in this little retrospective as well. But in Trails in the Sky 2, Ouroboros gives Estelle the opportunity to join their organization. But Estelle is too bright.
Oh, God.
Ooh.
She is too much of a good person. She does not have any darkness in her that would let her join the ranks of Ouroboros, who aren't technically evil, but they do a lot of bad stuff.
And they prefer to recruit broken people.
Right. They only recruit
Damaged
people. Yeah. Another honorable mention in Chrono Cross is that you
Yeah.
do get the opportunity to just not defy fate and lay down and die.
It's true.
At one
And
point.
plus, I mean, with all the twists and turns of the plot, like, you become the bad guy.
Yeah.
Literally and figuratively plenty of times.
Exactly.
Ancient robots in a fantasy setting. So we got Trails in the Sky 2, which I haven't played, so y'all take that one.
Yeah.
I mean, Trails in the Sky 2 involves, there's ancient technology from over 1,200 years ago that is more advanced than current technology, and you have to fight archaisms, which are advanced robots.
Yeah, that's what this trope is about, is this idea that's very common in fiction, but does not exist in our real world in any way, of an ancient civilization whose technology far surpassed anything we could understand today, and some of their stuff is still around.
I mean, ancient civilizations in our world didn't have TikTok, so...
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, whether that's an improvement or not, I don't know.
Maybe TikTok is an ancient technology, and whoever invented TikTok just found it.
They found it.
I mean,
Yeah.
clocks do predate us, and they do go TikTok. Secret of Mana is written here.
Yeah. Kilroy.
Is Kilroy ancient?
He's a robot in a fantasy
you
setting.
mean, yeah, he's a robot in a fantasy setting currently. Gotcha. Okay. One I don't see written down here, but is true, is Dragon Quest 4. There are robotic enemies in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yep. I must have forgotten that one.
That's okay. They're, I mean, because Dragon Quest games...
I know about the killer mechs, but I didn't...
Yeah.
Yeah, never really explained where they came from. They're just there.
They're robots.
I guess I forgot that they started in 4.
They're not like a part of the plot at all. They're just robots.
They're just
that
there.
Suddenly show up.
Funny enough, I've played through every Dragon Quest up to 8, and I don't remember where anything starts in any of them because they're always so ubiquitous. But I know that 4 has them because I think 2 has them even. And then we have the 7th Saga, which has the Tetujins. Which, one NPC casually mentions that there's about 30 of them in the world, which has no bearing on the story, and you meet about 2. Which I guess is pretty good odds. If there's 30 of something in the world and you've met 2, you're doing pretty good. Especially if you are yourself one.
Yep.
So, Lux Tizer is indeed. And he's also the only one to technically directly survive the events of 7th Saga and end up in Mystic Arc, which is the spiritual sequel, but it does have a robot in it named Lux.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Well, we
7th
will
Saga
experience
lore for
that
you.
one day.
Yep, it's on our list.
I'll be here for the Mystic Arc episode. That would be great. Because then I can talk about Akihiko Mori, R.I.P. But yeah, so that's 7th Saga, and that's all that's written here. I cannot argue this list because I don't know these other games.
That's right, you can't argue it.
Oh, Chrono Cross has Gjorbig, doesn't it? Grobik?
Yeah, Grobik.
Grobik.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, but it's also more of a steampunk civilization. Although he still seems advanced beyond.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy setting.
We'll count it as an honorable mention at the very least.
Yeah.
I forgot about Grobik.
I forgot it because there's so many characters.
There are so many characters.
He's close to the end, yeah.
And he's one of them that just kind of walks on screen and is like, hey, I'm Grobik.
He's like, you beat me in a
And then
battle,
you
therefore I
find-
will join you.
Exactly.
Because you look like you could use more characters on your side.
But he's a black character.
He is a black robot. And funny enough, he's one of the ones I don't actually like as much. But he is very powerful, so it's only personal. It's because he's no Robo.
He is no
True.
Robo.
Our next one is one that I don't think is ever going fully away. It's the final boss having multiple forms.
Well, yeah,
I
that's...
haven't even shown you my full power.
Dragon Quest IV, absolutely...
Dragon Quest IV has 7 forms.
Yes.
7 forms. Trails in the Sky 2, Persona 1, Thousand Arms, and Romancing Saga 1. That's 5 out of 9 games had bosses. I'm surprised when it's not 9 out of 9, honestly.
I'm trying to think, I guess Chrono Cross... It has multiple final bosses, but I guess they're not different forms.
But none of
the
them
final
shift
boss.
form.
Yeah. Not too bad.
And then we have surprise bosses. Only one surprise boss showed up here in Persona 1, unless you get the bad ending.
In which case, there are no surprise bosses in this group.
What's the definition of a surprise boss?
So I like to use Final Fantasy IV as the example of surprise boss, where you spend almost the entire game going, oh, Golbez is the bad guy. Gotta get Golbez. Gotta get Golbez. And then right at the very end, it's, oh, actually, it's Zemus. Oh, nope, sorry. It's actually Zeromus. There's your end boss.
Yeah.
It's,
Final Fantasy IX and Necron.
when you get, you get to the very end, and all of a sudden they swap the evil on you. It's like, no, I've built up the animosity towards... So, 6 doesn't apply, because it's Kefka.
Because we know it's Kefka the whole time, yeah. After the... Yeah.
At the halfway point, it's very clearly Kefka, and this is the closer to the end, the more it applies to this trope.
I am going to argue that Secret of Mana you do not see coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it does happen at the very end. Even though it's a character we know, we had no idea that...
That's true. The Mana Beast.
We heard about Mana Beast.
We didn't know it was going to be flamey.
We did, and we didn't know it was going to be like a current affair. We didn't know a Mana Beast was going to attack the tower.
Yeah,
we just knew who was
true.
in the tower and who we needed to defeat.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll take that as a surprise boss.
Yeah. And I mean, even then, it's like, we figured it might be Thanatos, but they were kind of building up this emperor of the dark side or whatever that, and then he just ends up getting unceremoniously killed, and but then at that point it's not a surprise that you're going to end up fighting Thanatos.
He would have shown up in the 5,000 hour version of Secret of Mana they were planning.
Exactly.
Jeez.
And but no, yeah, I'd say Mana Beast is more of a surprise than Thanatos for sure.
All right.
Silent protagonist.
This is another one that I don't think will ever fully go away.
Yeah, this is... so we've got Persona 1.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a silent protagonist.
We're all silent.
Like a
just
silent
like he
protagonist.
is.
We got nothing to say.
I will nod at it.
We have Secret of Mana, which actually he does have a few lines. He has, hey, wait up, guys.
Oh, well, then it becomes an honorable mention.
Yeah, and...
Because we didn't count Chrono Trigger either, because he gets a line in one of the endings.
Okay, yeah, so Secret of Mana, he does have lines. Sword of Hope, that I don't know.
Yep, the hero never speaks.
Never speaks.
Okay. Honorable mention is 7th Saga, whichever character you choose is silent, but the others aren't. However, the character does narrate their own actions. Like they will say, sometimes they'll say you, sometimes they'll say I. I see a bookshelf in front of me.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that could just be silent thoughts.
Yeah, it could be mind reading.
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, your character doesn't have dialogue, so that is for sure. Dragon Quest IV, your rotating main character is always silent, but when you encounter them as the real main hero, they talk to him. This is pretty
It's
typical
the same
of
thing,
the
yeah.
a pretty typical.
When
trope
you
there.
control it, and it's the same thing for the next honorable mention too, which is Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross, yeah.
Surge doesn't speak
Surge gets disheartened
when you're
he's
Surge.
evil.
Yeah, but then when you switch bodies, then he speaks way too much.
Yeah, and then Lynx doesn't
And
speak
gives-
when you're Lynx.
In fact, ironically, Surge gives you the most text-heavy, heavy-handed, just lore dump when you're about to fight the big computer lady. He's like, oh, by the way, here's the entire story up till now.
Yeah.
And just pours the story upon your unabsorbent brain.
Before you fight Liara Tassoni, I'll go ahead and bring that up here.
Sure.
That I think Fate, that all the Asari in Mass Effect are a ripoff of Fate
Oh yeah, Fate.
from Chrono Cross.
Fate was one of the coolest early 3D models of a boss, by the way.
Yeah.
She had
yeah.
so many polygons and
She
so
looked
many animation
so
tricks.
good for
yes.
that.
That was absolutely
Which is why I think that BioWare
Ripped
just
it off.
ripped off that design to make the Asari.
I mean, whatever. It's out there, I guess.
A fight you're supposed to lose. I kind of hate these. As a storytelling
yeah.
gimmick, I get it because it's an effective way to tell the story, but mechanically, I hate it because you will waste resources and time trying to win a fight that you cannot.
I actually have a name for this, and it's a Beatrix fight. Because Final Fantasy IX, you fight Beatrix 4 different times, and every single time she uses Clim Hazard to weaken your party and end the fight, and you actually never fight her because she becomes a good guy after the 4th, spoiler warning. And it's just, it happens so often and in such short spaces of time between when you fight her that, yeah, I think that's the perfect personification of that. Plus, you can, because you only have 10 rounds before she uses Clim Hazard, whether you are winning or losing. If you try to steal items from her, you only have that much time, so a lot of people reset so they can steal the full set. And I remember that one of them is so funny because you can steal a sword from her for Steiner that you cannot equip on Steiner before you are able to purchase that same sword. And it's the rarest honor, so it's like a 1% chance of getting it, and some people
And then
have
you
tried
can't
so
use it.
hard, and then you
Yeah.
can use it, but it's then you just immediately have access to it.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
So we encountered 3 of these Beatrix fights. Trails in the Sky 2, there is a solo boss fight that you lose if you take too long, but the story just goes on. The story does not care if you won or lost.
Well, I would say in the Trail series as a whole, to me, I think they kind of do a good job about having those kind of fights, but you can win them.
Yes, a lot of the supposed to lose fights
Yeah.
in the Trails series, you have a chance
Like the
to
one
win.
that comes to my mind first is actually from Trails 1 when you fight Leon for the first time. It is extremely difficult near the end of that game, but you can win, and you get a really good quartz or something.
That's
if
like what
you do
Lufia
win.
does.
And you get different dialogue where he's like, oh man, he still escapes.
Nice.
But he's like, oh man, you are strong. And I appreciate that about Trails.
We also have Dragon Quest IV with the Marquise de Lion. The first time you encounter him, no. And lastly, Chrono Cross. When you become Lynx, the battle against your former party
Yeah.
is almost unwinnable. I even, in this remaster, turned on the cheat codes so that I could not be hurt. And after this battle went on for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm just going to... I did, on going back through in a new game, I did finally beat it, but you are not supposed to.
I loved that moment in the game because it's like you're getting a taste of your own medicine.
Yeah.
these are the kids that come up and beat me up all the time.
I'm going to throw an honorable mention to 7th Saga because all the boss battles in it feel unwinnable.
Yeah, that's true.
And in fact, the first proper boss battle is against Romus, who is the ghost of a dog. And
You're kind of supposed to lose, though.
Yeah, you're kind of supposed to lose. You can win it, and in fact, the first time I played through, I did, because I just had immunity to grind fatigue. I just grinded until I could beat him. And also, I happen to be using a character that is naturally very powerful at the beginning of the game rather than later. Yeah, the idea is that you're supposed to lose, go get the whistle from a almost hidden away like house like nearby, and then go back and kick his ass in one move with the whistle. So that's kind of that. But also, I just feel like every boss fight in 7th Saga is a scripted loss.
Definitely. Yes.
That you have to overcome.
Oh, you gave me what I hate. I never do these in video games. Gambling mini games.
Yep.
The games that have gambling mini games, which I never do.
So we're just doing these in a random order, so I didn't really assign it to you.
Well, it's just
as
karma.
As much as it was on your turn.
Yeah, it's just karma. Trails in the Sky 2 has it. Basically, all the Trails games have it. At least all of the second games in a duology always have gambling.
I really like the it's not necessarily a gambling, but the mini game in 3 and 4, the card game. It's basically Magic the Gathering.
See, I hated that. I didn't do it. I did not do that game at all. And then in 3, there's that point where you have to play and win. You have to play the game.
Not a problem for me at all.
And it took me like I had no cards, so I had to use what's his name,
the guest deck,
Rutgers or whoever's own cards, and it took me like 3 tries to do it, and I hated it. But Trails in the Sky 2 does have gambling indeed. Persona 1 has gambling. 1,000 Arms, just
every dateable woman has her own gambling minigame.
Lord. Dragon Quest always has gambling.
Absolutely. Whole casino.
Yeah. And and Chrono Cross on the ship, on the Zelbis cruise ship.
Good old Snef.
But that's also where you meet Janice.
Snef almost made my worst character.
Yeah, Snef's pretty bad.
Snef's awful.
I don't think I've ever used Snef. I don't even know what element he is.
He's yellow, I think, and it's just silly because he's also a parlor magician as well as Guile. It's just he's the not cool version.
Right. He's the nerdy Guile.
Yeah.
And for our final topic,
only teenagers can save the world. Okay, we got Trails in the Sky 2 here.
Yep.
Y'all got to talk about
Estelle
that.
and Joshua are 16.
Yep.
Great. Persona 1, being high school characters, is kind of the point. So unless you're unless you're like that character in Better Off Dead, Charles Lamar, then you're not on your 7th year of high school. Secret of Mana. Randy is 16. We're going with canon names. 1,000 Arms. Mias is 16. Presumably the girls are roughly the same. Otherwise, some crimes are happening.
Yeah.
Romancing Saga 1. Several selectable characters are teenagers. Okay.
Yeah, I try to do research on the names and the ages. Sometimes it's easier than others, and there's so many characters in Romancing Saga 1.
Yeah, some of them are young.
Dragon Quest IV, main character 17 or 18, depending on the version. The U.S. reduced his age by 1 year so that he can't smoke. Sword of Hope, main character's coming of age. Can't recall exact age, but probably 16. That tracks. 7th Saga, can't prove it, but he'd be surprised if at least one of the characters wasn't. I think Asuna is supposed to be young, but she's also an elf, so it might be she's young, so she's only 120 years old.
Yeah, I could not find
she
canon
looks like she's 16, but
for
she's
7th Saga.
116.
The most likely would be Camille Dawana, because he's just your typical knight JRPG protagonist. He is very fashioned to be that way. We don't know what he looks like under the helmet.
All the characters in 7th Saga struck me as older.
They seem mature, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, there's only a couple of humans, and one of them is Valzu, and he's clearly an oldster. Like, I do like that the game does contain more very old people than, young people.
Yeah.
And then we don't know about Wilmy either, because how do aliens age? What are even their years? So, anyway. Oh, yeah. So, Chrono Cross, the list says here, Surge is 17, Lena and Kid 16, Harley is 18, just as a few examples. We also have Marcy.
Marcy is like 9.
We have Van, who has to be like 10 or 12.
Yeah.
We've got Korcha, and those are the human, like...
And Leah. Leah's like 5 or 6.
She's
little.
Young.
She's very little, but very strong.
And with their big Dolly Parton hair, which is pretty great. I'm having trouble remembering if there's any other human children, but then the the young non-humans are just rampant. Like, you literally hatch Draggy from an egg.
Mm-hmm.
Neo-Theo, I think you also kind of birth from something or other.
And Pip is like just recently created, maybe like a year old.
Yeah. And then we don't know about the turnip boy.
Yeah.
His mystery.
I think his age might just be a question mark.
Right.
And Poshel, she's a dog.
Poshel,
She's a
she is a
dog,
dog.
but she's like
A talking dog?
She's a talking dog.
A talking dog? It's a sequel to A Talking Cat on Netflix.
Oh.
Am I the only one who knew about that movie?
I know about a talking cat, but I am
Apparently.
remaining silent.
Okay, that's fair. All right, so now for the real discussion.
Ooh.
The worst character out of these 9 games. I have kind of an odd one, because I picked Greco for reasons we just discussed
Oh,
in
mercy.
the review.
Nice.
The idea of a psychic luchador exorcist is amazing. I want movies, TV shows, and video games about this guy. But because of the way Chrono Cross is made with all the characters, you never get to actually learn anything about his adventures or anything he's done. It's a wasted opportunity.
There are so many games on this particular list that fall under that same distinction. So many characters, so little backstory.
So, Russ, who do you have for worst character?
Well, this one was difficult for me until you pointed it out, and then it seemed really obvious because I said any character from Thousand Arms, and you said, well, what about the main character, Maze? And I'm like, well, of course, because his whole personality is that he's a horny teenage boy having possibly problematic relationships with all of these women.
Because he
that
has
he
to in order to fight
recruits.
evil.
Exactly. Yeah, it is the thing that I hate in RPGs, when it's like your whole personality is horny boy and every woman is in love with you.
So I didn't play all the games on this list, so I only am able to select from games that I did play. Well, I mean, that's a something I imposed on myself. So I went ahead and went with Korcha from Chrono Cross. Not only is he a terrible character to use in a fight, he uses a fishing pole and he's like not strong or anything, but he presents you with the worst choice in the game and tries to force you to do the bad choice, which is to get him in your party and to try and save Kid by, committing, essentially genocide.
Bringing
and,
about the,
and
extinction of
ecological
species.
atrocities,
Mm-hmm.
untold. And if you just ignore him, then his mom, who's way cooler, ends up joining you, and you get Glenn.
Yeah.
And the dwarves and the Hydra get to live. He's terrible in the story for that reason, and also that he is one of the worst tropes in these kind of games, and that he is just a blanket, like, sanctimonious character. He's supposed to be this bratty kid, but then he ends up with, like, this just impenetrable moral system that makes it really irritating to, like, not do what he wants you to do, which, again, is the worst decision that you can make in this video game.
Yeah.
So Korcha, to me, from many different directions, is the worst character in Chrono Cross and all these other games.
So, best character, I have Olivert from Trails in the Sky 2,
Aw.
because in a genre-breaking, I don't know what word goes next in this sentence. In a genre-breaking decision, they decided to create a bard who was useful in a game. He is a bard with a gun.
I was taking a drink of water when you were saying that, and it was an act of great restraint not to ruin your microphone by doing a spit take right there. Also, Russ is right across from me.
He's a bard with a gun. And
Bard with a gun.
he alternates between being very annoying and actually being secretly very clever.
Mm-hmm.
And
He actually
plays
is very clever,
yeah.
and he pretends to be annoying.
He ends up playing a very substantial role in the series overall, and I love him as a
He's
character.
also the best magic user.
Yeah. And again, since he's got the gun, he's also a ranged attack user, because that
Exactly.
matters in the Trails series. So
He's fun. There's a reason that he has been in more Trails games than any other character in the series.
Olivart, bard with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
That's my best character out of this list.
Yep.
Russ?
Here known as Olivier.
Real
name Olivert.
He's Prince Olivert, but he disguises
Pseudonym
himself
Olivier.
as Olivier the Bard.
Olivier Linheim. Yeah, he is really good. Obviously, my best character also comes from Trails.
Is it Estelle?
And it's Estelle, for the reason that I mentioned earlier when we were talking about joining the bad guys and joining the dark side. Estelle can't join the dark side because Estelle is just a happy, honest, positive, cheerful person.
So I like stories with depth and stories with characters and redemption arcs and all that stuff, but I feel like in the media of today, in contemporary times, it is very refreshing to have a positive protagonist. To have a hero who's just
She is not
happy
dark.
and doing their best.
She is not broody.
Not
She
a
is
tragic
not-
backstory.
no,
Not,
nothing like that. I
my
mean,
best friend died when I was 5, and it was my fault.
Well, and it's like her mom did die, but she
chooses happiness.
moves forward
Yeah.
and is grateful for the things that she has. And I love the moment that cemented her as being one of my favorite game characters anyway is the moment in Trails 2 when she's like, I can't join Ouroboros because I am not a damaged person. I do not fit in with this group.
And honestly, all of the Trails in the Sky 3 doesn't. But all of the Trails games mostly have positive protagonists.
They do.
By and large.
Yeah.
But Estelle is the most positive of all of
She
them.
is definitely the most positive. I also like that this was a game from almost 20 years ago that used the girl as the protagonist instead of the boy, because the secondary protagonist is Joshua, and I think other games would have made him the real main character and her like the side heroine. And Trails did the opposite. They made her the main one and then him more of the sidekick, and they also gave her the more traditionally masculine personality characteristics, and they gave him the more feminine ones.
Yeah,
and I like
interesting
that.
choice.
It was a very interesting choice, and especially for a game that came out originally in Japan in like 2003 or 4.
Chris?
My best character, the best character of all time of any game, but it happens to be a game that's on this list, is of course Diluc from Secret of Mana. Diluc is so good. He is so great and awesome. I wish you could meet him. I can't wait until we actually finally run into Diluc. It is going to be so great because Diluc is just going to save the day with his brilliance and his charm and his strength. So what I'm referring to is actually a trope that I kind of am starting to like pinpoint myself in these RPGs, and I call it Prim syndrome. Because of the character Prim in Secret of Mana and her obsession with Diluc. There's a thing in some RPGs where a female character, usually a pretty strong one, is utterly defined by a man who is not on the camera. You hardly ever get to meet him. Usually when you do meet him, he ends up being a bad guy, and or he ends up sacrificing himself in some way so that he's taken out of the plot. Like, you never get to see how great this character is. But given the stories that you hear about them, you're like, this has to be like just this greatest character. And I always felt that about Diluc, this unmeetable dude that you only see for like 5 seconds in Secret of Mana, who dies off camera in the end of the game by nobly sacrificing himself in a way that the game decides just not to show you. In the Secret of Mana remake especially, like, she just goes on and on and on about this guy, and everybody's just hype about Diluc. And so I just decided to use my best character thing, despite there being a ton of great characters in a lot of these games. Like,
none of them could be as great as
none
Diluc.
of them could ever be as great as Diluc, and I just can't wait till y'all meet him, guys.
Best game. For me, on this list, it's Dragon Quest IV. There is just something very comfortable. Really, starting up Dragon Quest IV feels almost exactly like just sliding into a nice warm bath. It is comfortable, it is dependable, it is good. It is a solid experience. I don't have any negative things to say about Dragon Quest IV, really.
Now everyone's picturing you in the bath playing Dragon Quest 4. So
That's the only way I play it.
my favorite should be of no surprise to anyone. Trails in the Sky 2. And I'm not just saying that because I love... No, I can't. No, Chrono Cross is on this list.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you didn't say Chrono Cross, I was surprised.
You've left me
Why don't you just meet in the middle and say Thousand Arms?
In a state of well, it has to be Chrono Cross, but I still want to talk about Trails in the Sky 2. I think that's the point, is I want to talk about that game more, because Sky 2 is the game that it wasn't Sky 1, it was Sky 2 that totally pushed me into like the Trails fandom that I have now, because Trails 1 sets up a lot of good stuff, and then all of the payoff happens in Trails 2. And Trails 2 is such like a bigger game, and the story becomes so much bigger, despite having to walk around and repair Orbital phones across the country. Overall, Trails 2 I liked even more than Trails 1. And so, yeah, it really, really pushed me into the fan base for this game. But I had written down Trails 2 and not even realized that we covered Chrono Cross in this thing. So, yeah, Chrono Cross is my actual answer, but
Trails 2 is your runner-up.
Yeah, you can't put 2 games this good in a list of 9 games.
I think you'll find that I can.
Without making my head explode.
I ran into the same problem. I was actually going to give it a tie between Chrono Cross and Dragon Quest IV. Neither is my favorite game, but they're both like exquisite for different reasons. So since y'all already talked about them, I'm just going to give it to Seventh Saga then, because I've always been
the dark horse.
I've always been like the outspoken, like unapologetic fan of Seventh Saga, and I think that it's a great game that kind of teaches you about that sometimes you can't just do the comfortable thing and grind your way out of a situation, or let the game like take care of you. Like it keeps you so on your toes that, but if it resonates with you, then that is actually part of the charm. I'm actually playing through it right now with an easy patch installed that just rebalances the game back to basically where it was with the original Japanese release Elnard.
Which is how I played it for the review.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is also good, but I'm going way too fast. I'm like, one night I'm already in Pell or whatever it is. So I'm like, just on the second continent, basically. So yeah, I really love the Seventh Saga. I'm not going to rank it above Chrono Cross or Dragon Quest IV. It's only because y'all already picked those.
This was overall too good of a list of games, I feel.
Well, let's talk about the ones that weren't too good. Because for my worst game, I have Romancing Saga 1.
Oh,
there were, in the review I mentioned it, there are 2 things that prevented me from being able to even enjoy trying to play this game. It made playing the game so filled with anxiety for me that I couldn't. It was, first of all, there's no main storyline.
Mm-hmm.
There's 1,000 quests available to you, but they aren't specific to you, with the exception of tiny little tweaks here and there for specific characters. 1,000 quests and no main storyline, coupled with the decision to make random combats what advances the world clock, so to speak, and locks you out of content. I am playing a JRPG where I am afraid to get into combat because I will not be able to experience all of the game.
Which they didn't include anyway, because there's no main quest.
Right. Yeah. The main quest thing is the solution to decision paralysis for when the world opens up. You can go anywhere. You can do anything. What do? Having a main quest...
You did a real good Tina Belcher right there.
Having a main quest gives you something to hold on to when you're unsure. And that's gone. And then the world... I like the idea of a world clock. That's a neat concept. But tying it to random battles was a horrible idea.
I'll say that I understand. I disagree, but I understand. And I hated this game the first time I played it without a guide, and then loved it the second time I played it with a guide.
That's the thing. In order to play it, I would have to fanatically follow a guide. And at that point, why am I playing this? I'll just watch somebody else play it.
I get it.
How about you, Russ?
Mine, like I said, for me, this was too good of a set of games that we played. The only 2 out of this whole list of 9 that I actually didn't like were Thousand Arms and Sword of Hope. And I ultimately gave my worst game to Thousand Arms just because it's just a dating sim. I hated the horny protagonist.
If Thousand Arms had been half as long, it would have been twice as good.
And
it wore out its welcome.
I didn't like, which I talked about in our review when we did that, is that it was trying to be like anime the game. So the battles took way too long. They tried to do all of these like anime looking character animations to do all of these super attacks and everything that just took a really long time. There were too many characters for the fact that you're kind of only using one in battle at any given time. And it just, so the gameplay wasn't fun. The story wasn't fun. I didn't like the characters. It was very tropey in all of the worst ways, according to me. Yeah, this was the worst experience that I had playing any of these games. Didn't finish it.
Again, I cannot speak for all the games because I didn't play all of them. I haven't played Trails in the Sky 2, Persona 1, Thousand Arms, or... No, I played all the rest. So I can't nominate any of those. So by default, my option, because I think all these games are great, has to go to Romancing Saga 1 as well. Only because it's a SNES RPG, which technically I can't hate any SNES RPG. I know this because I actually enjoy Tecmo Secret of the Stars.
Me too. Controversial opinion,
good.
but me too.
It's got a villain in it called Bad Bad.
And Cat Boo.
Cat Boo.
I love Cat Boo.
Cat Boo's great. So yeah, like that's charming. Romancing Saga 1, I just like was confused going in. Hearing more about it, I'm even more confused, and so I haven't played it a whole lot, but that's because when I did play it, it just didn't grab me. So I can't say that I hate it, but I can say of the games on this list that I have played, all of which are favorites, except Sword of Hope 1, which is just kind of a middling game that I respect in certain ways. Like, I just kind of have to give it to Romancing Saga 1, so there you go.
Poor Romancing Saga 1.
Best boss fight. For me, it's the end boss of Dragon Quest IV, Sorrow the Manslayer. Going through all 7 of his forms, with the enemy literally falling apart in front of you as you beat him and then mutating and rebuilding in front of you as you fight him. You reach a point where you're not sure which form is the last form, how many more do I have to go, and I got when I played it for the review, I happened upon the perfect in-boss thing where like I was throwing everything I had at it. Oh God, we're out of healing magic now. All right, now we're out of healing items. All right, everybody just hit until you drop. Hit until you drop. Everybody's dead but the hero. All right, it's just you and me. Blows back and forth. You're going to kill me on the next turn, but oh, you're dead. Won it by the barest margin possible, which is always just such a great feeling when that desperation pays off. So those two things coupled together made it the best boss fight for me.
I didn't say that because I figured that's what we would all say. So I tried to do something different. Couldn't really come up with anything. The Chrono Cross final boss is interesting, but not in a good way. I mean, of a game that I love so much, I admit that like that's not a good game. So I didn't pick like a final boss fight. I picked, and this is going to be very me, I picked in Trails in the Sky 2, there's an optional boss that you can fight, the Big Sheep.
Oh,
and
yes.
The Big Sheep you fight kind of pretty early game. I would say like late early game. And you go to the hot spring town and...
They repeat this in Cold Steel, I believe.
They do, yeah. But Trails in the Sky 2 did it first. And the girls are enjoying a hot spring bath. And then they think that they're being peeped on by some gentleman or something, and it turns out that there are these sheep, which are like regular enemies in the Trails games, lurking in the bushes, and so they follow them out to fight them, and then all of the sheep pile onto each other, kind of like a slime becoming a king slime, and they become a giant sheep, and you have to fight the giant sheep, and I just thought it was funny and clever. It reminded me of the king slime. The sheep, I've always enjoyed the sheep enemies in Trails games anyway, and their bad touch attack. So it was just, I think it was the most memorable boss fight.
Fair enough. And I didn't realize until we sat down to record this review, when I created the best boss fight category, it does not say best end boss fight. I always interpreted it that way. But that's not what it says, so rules is written. Go with what you want.
Yeah, so I selected as the best one, I think, if we're going with best final boss fight, then I would say also Dragon Quest IV. But because that was already said, I'm going to go ahead and nominate 2 fights from Secret of Mana. One of them is the Frost guy gets fight because you're literally fighting evil Santa Claus.
Sure.
Who turned evil because people stopped believing in him.
Right.
And that's just that just really sticks with you, especially in this game that otherwise isn't that whimsical. I mean, it is whimsical, but it's like Santa Claus. What the hell?
The whimsy goes up real fast and then goes back down again.
Back down, yeah, exactly.
It's not even a bell curve of whimsy. It's a spike.
It's a spike of whimsy, exactly correct. And I will say, for the fact that it wasn't my favorite to do so much, I have a lot of respect for the way that the final boss fight in Secret of Mana utilizes Mode 7. I also like that it requires you to cast things in order, like in order for your hero to be able to do damage to the thing, and so you kind of have to you have to manage your party a little bit differently, and then, that's coming right off of the climactic battle with, Thanatos, who, of course, does his little transformation.
And I like that you said climactic instead of climatic. I like that you got it right.
Oh, thank you.
People screw that up a lot.
Oh, I see.
Library. I don't know.
I'm not like Russ. Sometimes I give genuine compliments.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
All of mine are backhanded.
But yeah, coming off of that also musically, coming off of that spooky ass Thanatos battle theme with the constant just irritating scratches in the song, and then getting into Meridian Dance, which is the prog-tastic theme for the final boss fight. I mean, it really makes you feel like epic as AF. So I think Secret of Mana is my nomination there.
And our last category is the most surprising game. This one is a wild card because it can mean good or bad. It's just something that which game stood out to you the most, but you haven't had a chance to talk about it in this video. This is not a video, but you haven't had a chance to talk about it.
I mean, we are making that rap video.
God. We'll include it in the rap video.
Mm-hmm. So for me, Seventh Saga was the runner-up because it did a lot of new things, but the winner was Sword of Hope, which also tried a lot of new things, and they didn't work. A very busy visual style for the smallest possible screen, a complex password system for a mobile game, and an absurdly massive difficulty spike in the final dungeons, including run-of-the-mill enemies that are basically undefeatable. From the second I turned on this game and experienced an hour-long prologue to when the game started up and I saw what the visual style was, to when I cast my first spell and it killed me, everything about this game surprised me, and none of it was what I came to expect from a JRPG. So, it is the most surprising game for me. I did not enjoy it.
Yeah. Mine, there was really only one game I could pick for this, and it's also something I did not enjoy. The only games of these that I had not played before were Thousand Arms and Sword of Hope 1, but I had played Sword of Hope 2, so I kind of knew what I was getting into there, so I picked Thousand Arms. It was also surprising in the amount that I did not like it. If I'm not mistaken, this was a recommendation from Rachel?
It was, based on her vague memories of playing it as a teenager.
Well, and when I heard that, I thought, oh, maybe there's something more to Thousand Arms. I had heard of it before, but I didn't really know anything about it. So I thought maybe there's more to this game than what I think. And it turned out to just be a dating sim with really bad combat. So I was disappointed, so to speak.
I will say, I liked the look of the combat in Thousand Arms.
But that's all it was.
Yes.
My argument is that Thousand Arms thought it would be really cool to have this combat system that made you look like you were playing an anime, but they didn't put any other thought into it than that.
I liked the combat system for about 2-3 hours, and then I was...
For like 2 or 3 fights. And then I was like, I've seen this, and I don't need to play a, 40-hour RPG or whatever to experience more of it.
All right. Chris, bring us home.
So, well, you would think that it would be Chrono Cross, because Chrono Cross has a plot twist, a new, crazy thing happening, every beat of the story. But because of that, you kind of don't end up being surprised by anything. Everything from, talking to ghost child versions of, the protagonists of Chrono Trigger shortly before getting your ass kicked by your girlfriend's dad, who has been frozen in time, just before, or just after switching bodies with, like, what you think is the main antagonist, and all that kind of, so much happens that you're just kind of like, you're looking forward to it, and therefore you're not actually surprised. It's a roller coaster of a convoluted plot. So therefore, I'm going to pick up where Jeff almost picked up and say Seventh Saga. Seventh Saga surprised me because it came out among a glut of SNES RPGs. I mean, 1994 through 5 through 6, was just it was endless Christmas for those of us who were in the 16-bit era and enjoyed RPGs. And, I remembered renting this along with Paladin's Quest basically at the same time. And, Seventh Saga did surprise me because it was just so bonkers hard. And it surprised me that I super enjoy it. I really, really love this game. I wouldn't take away even the difficulty of it. It surprised me how much, maybe it doesn't surprise me now, but how much other people kind of hate it and have been trying to fix it or explain away that, why it's difficult. Nobody has the actual correct story. They just kind of put their theories out there as facts. And then it does have a twist in it, a really big twist that you are not expecting, both in the final act of the game and the actual ending. Both of those are just completely twist you around in ways that you are not expecting, because the story is so minimal up to this point that you're just kind of enjoying the world and kind of going on your what you think is a single-minded quest, and then they're just nope, boom, there you go. And you're like, holy shit, my head is spinning. And and then just different things, like a guy called Dr. Fail invents a robot that's supposed to protect from a force of evil, and then that robot goes haywire and you have to fight it. Big surprise. That was the hugest surprise of all. So yeah, Seventh Saga is a game that looks like it's one thing on the outside, and then you get inside and it's a whole different thing, and then you keep playing it and then it's a whole other different thing, and nothing is broadcast. Nothing is predicted in that game. So whereas Chrono Cross is a cavalcade of just plot twists and weirdness, it's Seventh Saga at least pretends to be normal at first, and then it throws the bazonker stuff at you when you least expect it.
So I think technically this is our 51st episode, because we had an episode 0 where we talked about what the concept of the series was, but we have not yet played our 50th game, because we do these wrap-up episodes every 10 episodes. But it does mean our 50th game is coming soon.
It is coming up.
Join us next time, where we go back to talking about games, and we talk about Suikoden.
I can't wait.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Home on the RNG is a presentation of Mad Centaur Productions. You can find Jeff on YouTube at youtube.com/Centaur Productions, or on Twitter at Jeff Centaur. You can find Russ on Twitter at RussMac25. You can find Chris on Twitch at twitch.tv/LiarExaggerate, or on Twitter at EnrichFlavor. Thank you for listening, and remember to save your game before powering off this podcast.